Welcome to episode 89 of the Drag Drive Repeat Show presented by Summit Racing. Y'all, we've got Graham Hayes on tonight. Huge nitrous guy that's making a change in the car. It's going to be kind of cool.
We're gonna pack things up and hit the road and try to make it the next day.
All right, y'all. Well, you know the deal. My name is Mike Narks. I am the host of this Drag Drive Repeat show. And I see Mr. Eric White is backstage. He's getting his stuff together and ready. I'm sure he'll be on here in just a minute. But I host this show and the Saturday morning news, which is your hour-long episode. So we have 3 hours weekly of the live stream about the Drag and Drive community right here. So I want to start the show off real quick. We'll let Eric get set up here. But I want to say thanks to all of our race car friends. Y'all, I've spent a ton of time this week on getting the show ready earlier, getting news stories, writing articles. I've got a few articles that are in the queue, and we've got a ton of stuff that's ready. I've been editing videos as well, and we wouldn't be doing that without our race car friends. So I want to say thank you so much for being part of this. And then, of course, our sponsors can't do all the travel and all the stuff that we, the equipment and all that kind of stuff without these guys. So I want to say thank you to them, Summit Racing, Molly Motorsports, Driven Racing Oil, Car Change 3D, WIFE Racing, Performer Built Transmissions, J-Wire Solutions, Howard's Cams, Sweet Patina, Racing Junk Classifieds, and Power Tube TV. Can't wait to see everybody at PRI. There's a lot of folks that are going to be at PRI. We'll be sharing out booth numbers throughout the next few episodes. I didn't put them in this week's because we went over it last week, but we'll be sharing posts there as well. Mr. Eric, when you're ready, you just give me a thumbs up or you just pop on. So I know you're backstage getting stuff ready there. All right, guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but Summit Racing Speed Legacy began in 1968 as a one-man startup and is now the world's speed shop with 4 facilities and 200 plus catalog editions. They fuel your passion, they save you money, they deliver fast, and they offer top-notch customer service for more than 1,500 brands. Make sure to download the Summit Racing mobile app for easy access to speed parts at your fingertips. Find them on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. You can also find them on the On All Cylinders podcast if you like automotive discussions like this one. From humble origins to the social media lane, Summit Racing stands by your need for speed. Find everything that you need at summitracing.com. All right, Howard's Cams community, dude.
All right, let me hit this this video and then we'll jump in.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Harris from the Monoxide Podcast. Real quick, Howard's Cams was founded as a racing cam manufacturer almost 80 years ago when Howard Johansson created Howard's Power and Racing Equipment in 1945. Howard's Cams has always used on-track experience to design the most powerful designs, and today they have an even greater group of experienced racers in circle track, drag racing, road race, mud bog, and marine. They use all this input plus the most advanced computer software to design the most competitive race-winning products. From pioneers in drag racing and oval track to cutting-edge marine development, Howard's Cams is at the forefront of the industry. So make sure to reach out to our friend, Luke B, for your next valve train upgrade.
Oh yeah,
Can't hang out with Luke B.
Yeah, excited for that. All right, so the Howard's Cam community segment is where we jump in and talk about whether it be car builds in the community, different events, or whatever. So,
You know what? I have the Donovan Linwood updates in my folder on my computer, but I didn't put them in here.
yeah, that's not gonna work too well, eh?
People aren't going to care about that. Hey, listen, sometimes I get it all right. Yeah, Donovan Linwood, the update there is he has new wheel tubs, going to have a bigger tire on the back of that car. and it looks awesome. You have to just envision it in your head, the photo that I had in there. So go follow Donovan Linwood on Facebook. He's got the photo up there.
Yeah. Do you have anything from these?
Nope. All I've got is Graham Hayes stuff, man. Because
Uh-huh.
he's the coolest dude for tonight.
All right.
Again, in the folder. I don't even have my hard drive out here to I can pull them up.
Well, topic number 2 we can definitely talk about because
Mhm.
that is Adam Dory, the airborne announcer, is he's booking for 2025. So if you are a promoter for an event and you need an announcer, be sure to hit up Adam Dory before his schedule gets filled up.
Yeah, I love that dude. He is a great announcer for sure. And then our last topic here before we bring on Graham is Matt Blasco. We hinted at that the other day, and he still won't let me share photos of this stuff. But he said that he finally got his air intakes 3D printed out of polycarbonate carbon fiber, and they look good. And now just have to dyno the car and make sure it's good. They switched to alcohol instead of C16 and remove the intercooler for packaging in the new car. So if you've been around Matt for a while, you can probably put together what he's putting together. This car's going to be nuts, man. And sick week 2025 is kind of the plan for the debut. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, Graham getting set back up here. I want to this dude is really a ton of fun. I'm gonna talk about it before we bring him on, but he is anytime we see him at any event, he's always having a great time. No matter
yeah.
if he's really having a good time or not, because he's had some wild times for sure at some of the events. So we're going to talk about some of that. We're going to talk about the current car project. We're going to talk about what how he got there and all that kind of stuff. So let's bring on Mr. Graham Hayes. Sir, how are you this evening?
How are y'all doing this evening? I'm doing great.
Dude, we're having a blast. I'm excited about this. You and I have probably in all the times we've been together have spent 20 minutes standing next to each other. So we're gonna get to hang out for about 30 or 40 minutes tonight. So
Yeah. You weren't hanging out with us at Drag Week, Eric. We got to hang out for a while, but we don't know where you were. He must have been snoozing.
No, he had to leave to go to what was it, a Midwest Drag Race series event.
Yeah, the big pro mod race. Yeah, dang. Well, I missed that for sure.
You did. You did. We had a lot of fun.
Yep. It was a good night that night. We stayed out too late because the next morning we woke up and had to take the oil pan off before we left the parking lot.
Oh, no.
Yep. So the next morning the oil pump stuck and it blew up an oil filter. And then while we were going through the motor after that, after we beat the oil pump, the oil pump bypass back open for the second time the week, we found I think it was probably like 7 or 8 push rods that were stopped up and some rocker arms that were burned up. And we were like, hey, it's the last day. Who cares,
Right. And just got to get to the track, make one pass. That's all.
Yep. It did it. So
that's awesome. Well, we definitely want to talk about that car, but I want to back up. I want to talk about how you got to this 7-second car. Walk us through some of the cars you had in the past.
Yeah. So my very first car, well, actually, shoot, right there, it's a 82 S10 that is, I bring it out, we say I bring it out every 3 or 4 years. It's been redone many a time, but my dad's really good buddy, he actually gave it to me. He had put a motor in it, and a transmission in it, and he had just kind of got tired of it. And he gave it to me for Christmas, 2014. So I was 14 years old, and I played with it for a while, and then I ended up buying an LS and putting an LS in it. And I believe the first time we went to the track, I was 15. I know I couldn't drive because my parents took me there, and I believe it ran a high 13 the first pass, and the second pass it broke the $8 cheapo spool I had for the whatever junky rear end was in it, and it locked the tires up, and I spun it around backwards at Virginia Motorsports Park, and of course it was all. It had like a little roll bar in it, but no serious cage or anything. And after that night, Dad came out and said, "Are you going to keep doing this?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "Well, I want you to be safe." So we took the truck, and it got like an 8-point cage in it, something a little safer. Definitely plenty for what we were doing at the time. And this was the first car I ever messed with nitrous on. So I had like one of those plates on the, stock drive-by-wire throttle body off on this 5.3 LS, and it did fine, but it just wouldn't make the power. I really wanted to run. At the time, I was like, I want to run tens, and the only way to do that with a $300 LS motor was turbos, and so I actually I followed the Hot Rod Garage bone marrow build almost to a T. I mean, every part number they put out, I saved up and got it, and I don't know that it went tens. It probably went like, high 11s or something, but we definitely played with it for a long time. And so that was my first, introduction. And I mean, I welded the quarters in it. I painted it. When I got it, it was 4 trucks or 5 trucks he'd put together. If you take the interior out of it, there is more colors in there than a Crayola box. And yeah, I mean, we did a bunch of work to it over, many years, and really, it really taught me. It was really a good foundation, to learn on, and nobody cared about it. So if you messed it up or did something wrong, I mean, the guy that gave it to me, I asked him a question one time, and he said, "You have a welder and a grinder. There's nothing you can't mess up that you can't fix." So I'm sure there's some stuff on it that's terribly unstraight from a 14-year-old, putting cab corners on it, but it looks decent from 50 foot away. So
yeah, there you go. And it looks good. What's it run now?
At Sick Week, the first year of Sick Week, the first day was the last time it went in the quarter. I want to say it went a bottom 8, maybe a high 7. It's it's a single turbo 408 LS. It's got some good stuff in it, but it's still stock block deal. It's more down to earth than most of my other stuff is, I would say. So it's got a 750 cage in it now. It's all chrome moly, nice 9-inch cow tracks. It's a fun truck, but I'm actually putting it back together to run our local heads up 8th mile next year. I'm going to run it in our local streetcar class. They're kind of booting me out with some of our other cars we bring down there. So
nice. Well, why don't you give us a little build recap on both the gray and the purple car?
Okay, yeah. So the purple car came about because of Drag Week. A family friend had bought a car to go do Drag Week, and we went down to the auction. I guess he was buying. He was going to buy it at this auction, and while we were down there, there was all these really nice, incredibly bespoke, just mint muscle cars, and then there was this one purple Nova that somebody had destroyed, and all these people were talking about how it was going to sell for no money, and if it was all original, it would be so much better. And I fell in love with it. I was probably 17, 18 years old. I fell in love with it, and my dad walked around there, and he said, "You like it?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "This is the first car that me and you both like." We both, he loved Corvettes. I wasn't a big Corvette guy. I loved, the G bodies, and I like stuff that was a little weirder, I guess you would say. And he was like, "I like a Chevy too. You like a Chevy too." And so we ended up, he said, "You got this much money to go play with," and it sold for way less than that. This thing, nobody there liked it. They all had their noses turned up in the air. And we actually drove like a passenger car down there. So we had to drive like 5 hours home, get a truck and trailer, go back down there. Yeah, it was completely unplanned. And Dad was like, "Hey, we got us a car now, so let's do Drag Week." And it had a 454 in it that was probably a 400 that they claimed was like some built, to the hill motor. It was probably out of some farm truck. And it had a Power Glide in it that my transmission guy at the time said was the worst Power Glide he'd ever laid eyes on. And he said when you spun the input shaft, it made noises, that you just couldn't believe. And I drove it with that in there. So it was, impressive, I guess. But that was probably about 3 months before Drag Week 2019, which would have been my first event I ever went to. And I'd been seeing it on TV and, everything else. I really wanted to go, and Dad wanted to go. And so we actually took it up to one of our family friends that Dad raced with back in the, early 2000s, is Pat Bennett Race Cars. And we got up there, and he was going to put a motor in it and maybe build some headers and do just whatever the car really needed to get it, ready to go and get the cage up to cert for Drag Week. And I think he ended up redoing pretty much everything that was on the car. The cage was, just really and truthfully nothing. The motor, like I said, was nothing. I think it made like 200 horsepower to the dyno. And the trans, So we ended up going through the whole car, and like I said, it was a pretty quick little build. And we ran Pro Street Power Adder was the plan, but with I think it was like 2 days before drag week, the car had just cranked up for the first time. We went to the track. I don't know if we tried to spray it and something went wrong, or if we never tried to spray it, but we ended up saying, "Hey, we're just going to run Pro Street NA." So we ended up taking the car and pulling all the nitros off. We went to 19, and we finished second. Yeah, we finished second in 2019 in Pro Street NA. And that was like it, man. That was the worst thing that could ever happen. I'm hooked. It's like, darn, we had such a great time. And the craziest thing is we were so unprepared. I don't know what we took or what we didn't take. I know we pulled a trailer, but literally the car was so fresh and nothing broke, nothing happened. Like it was the just drive from track to track. Yeah, we made like 1 or 2 passes every day, and it was just a really crazy experience. Like it just went so smooth that it kind of ruined us, because we're like, man, people say these things are, hard. Like this thing's easy. And we ran bottom 9s in the quarter on motor. So, I mean, it wasn't a, not a slow car by any means.
Man, that's wild. To not have any struggles your first year is pretty intense, man. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it was a struggle to get there, and that's kind of how it always was, like we had some issues with the trans, whatever. But I mean, after the first day, it was like, just cruising. I mean, the worst thing, it's like, oh, we got to put the tires on it, so it was definitely cool. But the gray car was kind of the same way. So, we ran Pro Street Power Adder, and I love Glenn Hunter, man. He's so cool. He's always been good to me. But Glenn's he's king of the hill in that class as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We could probably run with him now. The new motor program, the new nitrous motor program we've got in these things is pretty wicked. We actually just found like 200 horsepower 3 weeks ago. Yeah, if I'd have had that at 19, if I'd have had that at I'm sorry, not 19. If I'd have had that at Hot Rod Drag Week this last year, we probably would have got our mission. I really wanted to run 6s with the nitrous motor. And not some crazy exotic nitrous motor. I wanted to do it with a 484 bore space, non-spread port head, something that really and truthfully, if you had a little know-how and the want to, it's not that far crazy. It's not some exotic, spread port head. It's not a $100,000 nitrous motor. This is something that, is still down to earth. And we probably could have really done it with the gray car if we would have had this motor. So,
man, that's crazy. Yeah, you were close. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute.
Yeah. So we ended up doing the gray car, though. We wanted to step up to the next class, and the next class is obviously, Ultimate Iron. And our plan was to build a car that was, 3,000 pounds on the money. And we wanted to make 2,000 horsepower. That should run, 680s, pretty easily with a 400 lockup with a good 60 foot. And of course, being me, it's going to be on a radial. It's going to be on either 275 or 315. And we're gonna run that thing hard up front, and just kind of coast out the back with the nitrous motor. It's kind of all you can do, anyways. So that car came together pretty quick as well. Gene Fulton built us 2 motors, and we ended up putting the same motor. I try to do that if we got 2 cars. I want them to have as many same parts so we can, share and pick and pull. And that actually came in really handy this year, because we stole Dad's motor to go to drag week and made him stay at home. We burned ours up. We burned one up like 2-3 days before we left, testing one night. I was like, man, this thing's hurt. And I didn't have time to put sleeves in it or take it to anyone to put sleeves in it. And we were like, hey, we're stealing your motor. So, but we ended up getting this new nitrous motor. It's a 706. It made good power. It did everything we wanted to do. It definitely would make the power we were talking about making, but the problem with it is that it's just very finicky up there, and we kind of proved that to be true during sick week. So we went to drag week with the car fresh, same deal. It had 3 passes on it. I didn't have my license. The car was 6.0 certed, but I didn't have my license, and I was going to try to get them there. But this was the year we were at Darlington, and Darlington wasn't sanctioned, and it just turned into kind of a mess. So we ended up 750 bracket racing it. I believe we finished second, even 750 bracket racing. I know we turned in like maybe 1 or 2 750-0 with a number.
Wow.
So like, yeah, we were like, darn, we're pretty good at bracket racing for people that never bracket raced. But the car was just so happy, and it was kind of the same deal. I mean, we had a couple parts failure, but nothing major. And were really happy. After that, I got my license. We did some testing. I think the next weekend after Hot Rod Drag Week, I took it to our local track, Virginia Motorsports Park, and I went a 719 with like zero spray, like half the spray that we
Wow.
really should. Yeah, we were super happy. We're like, this thing's going to do everything we want to do. And then from there, we started having issues, and the motor kind of proved itself to us to be the issue that we actually discovered here a couple weeks ago. But it was a very good, very good car, very good program. We were super happy with it. But when we went down to Sick Week and heard it the first day, that kind of started this turbo deal because we knew we had to do something different. I'd never not finished one before, and it really kind of hurt my feelings to not finish one. So
What
Yeah.
what other cars do you got in the fleet? Is there anything else?
we got some other stuff, just some old street rod stuff. I got some stuff we cruise around, and Dad's got a bunch of old cars. He's always messing with something. There's a motor to my right here that God only knows what's inside of it. He painted it the other day, and I'm like, man, we should have started, by taking the heads off, maybe not painting it, but it makes noises, and it'll probably move a vehicle from A to B. But Dad's always messing with something, and he's got a decent amount of old street rods, and my grandfather's, last few vehicles he had. So yeah, we've got a bunch of toys here. We're very fortunate. It can kind of be a headache sometimes, but the racing kind of gets in the way of all of it because, when it's time to go racing, it's time to go racing. And unlike, I'm not gonna say unlike everyone, but unlike a lot of the people I see in the drag and drive community, that's probably one of the reasons that we've had such good luck with our nitrous program. Everyone kind of tells me we're crazy for doing what we do, but as I just stated, I've only not finished one of them. And it's because of the amount of racing we do, especially during the season. We're at the track anywhere from 2 to 3 weekends out of the month, and we usually try to test, one night during the week. We're lucky we're in a part of the country that just has, I couldn't even tell you, maybe 10 tracks within 3 hours, and most of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so nice. I couldn't imagine living in some of these places. They're driving 6 or 7 hours to a track. We have pretty much a track almost every night besides Monday night that does a regular weekly scheduled test and tune.
Wow.
And so it's hard to beat. It's like, hey, we're going testing Tuesday and you miss it. You're like, oh, we're going to go test Wednesday. We're just going here, so.
It's going to be a different direction. Man,
Yep.
That's crazy. Well, let's, I have, you probably already know this, but by my stats, you guys are the quickest nitrous car of 2024 to finish an event. Thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, with your Ultimate Iron finish at Hot Rod Drag Week, 726 average there with a best pass of a 718. So I think you already answered the question there. The 718 just makes you go, man, we're so close to a 6.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm the type of person, I'm almost so stubborn that I would have, done differently than what we have done. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I would have done differently just to prove it. But at the end of the day, if you look at the community and how things are going, the car is an all steel, all glass car. And in the class that we run of Ultimate Iron, I'm not gonna say we're the only one, but we were the only one in that top 5 at Hot Rod Drag Week. I guarantee you that. Most of those guys are Lexan, they're carbon front clips, and most of those people are, overweight. Our car, factory glass, factory, all steel, factory dimension car, and granted it's cut up, it's a race car. I'll be dead honest with you. But even with all that, just the fact that the nitrous combination is so light, even with the 400, even with the big, the big rear end out back, the 9.5 inch, we had over 200 pounds of ballast in the car, like 270, I believe. And we went across the scales every day at 3,007, 3,008 pounds.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah, so and that's kind of what our whole debate was. I really, have been kind of waving my flag for a little while here, saying, hey, look, these guys are making more power than us, and they weigh. Everyone has to weigh the same weight, which is fine. That's the way the rules are. But to me, in my mind, I saw a little issue with it. The fact that, hey, they've got one piece carbon front end. They've, this thing's all cut up and got carbon and no door panels and has Lexan everything. And they're still, 3,200 pounds, where we're sitting here with the all factory, steel car. You stick a magnet to any part of this thing besides the hood. And even the hood on it is not light. I mean, I could definitely find something lighter, but we thought, hey, if you'll let the nitrous combination come in, you can limit us on something, 484, whatever you want to do, but limit us a little bit on something like that and just give us a weight break. I mean, if you took my car and did everything to it that let's just say Brian's car has done to it, one piece front end, all the glass, everything like that, I think my car could have been as light as, mid 2,500 pounds. And, 500 pounds, you take that 718, that turns into a 680 real easy.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
we didn't make any progress there. No one seemed to agree with us. So at that point, it's like, hey, if you're not going to help us out with the weight, which is fine, it's your rules. We're playing in your playground. Then we're going to come play by your rules. And we're going to take advantage of all of them. So
yeah, what's interesting, the two sides of that, because we really don't have any. For drag and drive, there's no like if you run nitrous, you get less weight. If you run turbos, you get more weight. All that kind of stuff. Like I see when we do the Midwest Drag Race Series. And
yeah,
I mean, is that a good way to even some of these classes up?
Well, and I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people say, hey, well, the motor's unlimited. So, hey, you can weigh what you want. The motor's unlimited. Build you a nitrous motor. And I think that's just not a realistic thing in this world because of the fact that, not to point fingers, but there's another nitrous guy out there. Everyone knows who he is, and everyone knows he's won a lot of stuff. And my motor and his motor are probably a solid digit apart. So, it's a big jump. And to say that, hey, you can buy this turbo motor that, any good turbo motor out there, is about half of what my nitrous motor is. And so, it wasn't realistic for me. I'm like, hey, I could buy, 4 or 5 of these turbo motors for what the nitrous motor that I need to run with them cost.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense. So I think the problem with it is why the reason the weights are like they are is because, this all came from Freiberger and everyone's just following his steps. And he's a Bonneville guy. And if you go to Bonneville, that's how all their rules are wrote. Nothing against that either, but it makes it where the best motor package for the combination for what you're doing, it'll always shine, which I guess is a good thing. But my argument with it was that, hey, Drag Week 2024, I would say I'd say there's less than 10 cars running nitrous. I would say there was 2 there that were spraying over 3,000 pounds per hour, and only one of us finished. So
Yeah.
I don't want to see Drag Week turn into hey, this is the big block Coyote Turbo Nationals. But at the same time, if they're going to write the rules like this and people are going to come play, you got to take advantage of all of them if you're going to be serious. I mean, if you're going to show up, just have a good time. I mean, that's what we did in 2019 when we first started. I had no clue about anything, and we probably had more fun back then. But now, we feel like we want to run at a higher level, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we put the effort in and to make that happen, and the rules, kind of dictate what direction you have to go.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to run through your 2024 stats real quick, and then we'll I want to hear what went down at Sick Week. You may have already said, but Midwest Drags, you won the Ironman class, and were you the fastest car at Midwest? I think you were the fastest car at Midwest, right? Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we won overall.
Yep. 771 average there with the best of a 7,292, and then Sick Week, obviously unlimited iron DNF, but did make a 770 pass on day 1. So kind of give us a rundown of what went on there, and then we'll talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say this first. We were probably faster at Midwest than we were at Hot Rod this year. The motor we took to Hot Rod had over 50 passes on it, and
Wow.
Yeah, I'll give you that motor was so beat up that the first oil change we did, we found a wrist pin keeper.
Oh, no.
And we were like, what do we do? And to be honest with you, I had some spare rods with me. I had some spare pistons, and we were like, let's see what time we get in tonight. and we'll work on it. And it made it through the whole week, and we actually the last day when we took the oil pan off, we found another wristband keeper. So that motor had some passes on it, but we
Yeah.
were faster at Midwest. Unfortunately, the tracks were just not there for the radial tire. If you had a slick tire car, you definitely would have had a huge advantage there. So the radial, though, there were a couple fast cars there. The Brads from Tin Soldier had a fast car, and they were definitely right on our heels. But they were on a radial too, so it's like if you got to pedal the car 2 or 3 times down through there, you're going to be losing some ET. But to pick up sick week, we went down there. We were down there for like a day before testing, and the car we had found a bunch of power, but the chassis just wasn't there. So we were wheeling pretty bad, and no traction problems. The car very rarely strikes the tire on any mediocre surface. But the wheelie was just getting out of hand. I mean, this thing, I have videos of it wheeling way past the 330. And you couldn't keep it down. And so the first pass, the first day, we thought we had a pretty solid tune up in it. The DA, the density altitude dropped. I believe the pass we made the night before, we were at like 1,000 or maybe I have to look back, but I mean, like, it was well in the high hundreds, low thousands. And we woke up that morning, and we were in the negative 400s.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
yeah, a nitrous motor, a tune like that, and this is kind of another thing I was getting at with the nitrous motor stuff, but, we really need to run the car a little differently. But, we put a bunch of fuel in the car. We were like, this thing's going to be safe. We're fine. And the car wheelied a little bit out the hole. I short shifted. It came down. We were on the move. I said, this is going to be, our first one and done of the week. We're going to, have something for these guys. And I believe about right after the 8th, not quite the 1,000, it kicked through the intake. It burned number 2 cylinder, and I had everything to fix it, but it got the sleeve really bad, and it got the head a little. There you go. So that was it. And so I talked to some people, Jordan Martin and Mazda Head Shop. He was local. He was willing to work with us and whatever. But by the time we got it apart and realized what it was going to be a showing up to the track the next day, at the end of the day after a all-nighter. And not to say it's not worth it, but it was such a remote chance. And if it was day 3 or day 2, even probably, we would have said, hey, I've never come back to the trailer on a tow truck, so I probably would have put a little more effort into it. But we were like, we're not going to start this week off like this. Let's go work on our program and come back. Because if it hurt that one, to be honest with you, it's no telling what else in the motor could have been messed up. And it turned out we actually had cracked the sleeves or the block in between the sleeves, so it would have been a downhill ship from there because we had egged 2 or 3 cylinders doing that.
Well, and that's one thing that Jeff Lutz told Finnegan in the conversation they had was like, we went through everything. He's like, we could have fixed it. Yeah, we had the parts, but he's like, what was the original cause? What was doing it? And he's like, man, when we decided it just wasn't worth it. So yeah, I hear you completely.
Yeah. And, the DA is a double-edged sword. It always is at any of your big races, any of your Winter Series stuff for the Pro Mods, any of your, Cup stuff up in Maryland. It's the same reason that all these cars are so fast during the winter, because the air is so great and Florida is so great for good air. But the problem is when you have a swing like that, there's not many combinations that won't hurt themselves doing it, and I believe, to be honest with you, that first round was just cursed anyways. I know Devin dropped a valve, I believe, destroyed that motor. I'm trying to think. It was 1 or 2 other cars I know that were hurt. So the Monte Carlo, I know they got a cylinder. It was like 4 or 5 of us pitted right next to each other, had cylinder heads off and dropping pistons. So we definitely, that first round was definitely a tough one for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I'm going to flip through these pictures while Eric asks a few questions.
Yeah. So obviously we know your power adder of choice is nitrous. So how much nitrous do you go through during an event?
During an event, if everything goes perfect and it's not Midwest drags where you got to make 2 passes a day, we go through more or less 2 bottles a pass. So we run 12-pound bottles. It'll burn about 7 pounds out of each bottle by the time you purge. And get down to the end and clear the bottles and everything. So we take 4 bottles with us. I have a small bottle rack in the trailer, and that's enough to do 2 passes every day. And hopefully, they fill them on site for us at most of these events. So that's super nice. If we're going to a race where they don't fill on site, I actually have some other bottle mounts made up that we can throw in there pretty quick. And Midwest Strags, I think we took 8 or 10 bottles with us, and we were like, we're not going to make it to a track and not have nitrous, because unfortunately they didn't have nitrous on site. So we were hitting up people, randomly, shops on the way that had some nitrous for us. So actually Hargett filled a couple bottles for me when we stopped at his shop. So that was super cool of him.
Nice.
Man, that's like pro mod stuff. Like Keith Haney's car runs through about that much nitrous.
Yeah, well, those guys are doing it in the 8th as well. So you got to take when 7 seconds and 3.5 seconds is a little different. But I can tell you, we turn on a little over 3,000, about 3,200 pounds per hour is about what these motors are happy with. And like a pro nitrous motor, these guys will turn on into the 6,000. So they're substantially more, but they also have substantially more cylinder head and substantially more piston bore space to take that, ingest that nitrous. That's the thing with nitrous. You can't just keep putting it in there. It's not a turbo. You can't just keep adding it and adding it. At some point, the intake becomes unhappy, and at that point, your tuning window just keeps getting smaller and smaller to the point where you're a few pounds per hour from when you're going to get to put a rack in it. So,
yeah, and those guys, a lot of the pro mod guys don't care. They got 2 racks in the trailer. They're just they pull back to the pits and drop it out and put one in, and okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of us. I mean, unfortunately, with the nitrous stuff, whenever we go to drag week or any of these events, we have a rack with us. I usually have a couple free floaters that are ready to go. The car is built, it's like people that look at it, especially from some of the other power adders, or an NA motor, they're like, man, this thing is, built kind of funny. It's like, yeah, it's because we can put it on Pro Jacks. I can have the oil pan off of it probably 4 or 5 minutes. We can have each cylinder head off of it in less than 30. We can have a rack back in it. Streetcar bragging rights, we put a rack in it. It was 2 or 3 of us. And we had a head that we had to work on too a little bit, put some valves in. I mean, we're talking an hour and a half, both sides off and, pistons in. So, I mean, when you build these cars and you're going to hurt them, you build it so it's easy to work on,
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say too. The level of car build now is really about, we're really seeing like that ease of maintenance, the ease of repair, the ease of getting to stuff is really taken over as compared to, used to. It's like, hey, how much can we fit under this hood to make us go as fast as possible? Now it's like, hey, we might not need those fender liners. And
oh yeah, definitely. The S10 behind me, the last time it hurt a cylinder at a head, it hurt the cylinder head at a streetcar race that we were at, and I believe me and 2 or 3 of my buddies, it took us probably 7 or 8 hours by the time we did exhaust. And I mean, it's terrible, and so that's one of the reasons it's been down for a while. We redid a lot of stuff under there, but you get some that you're like, man, I don't want to put the back spark plug in it, and I'm like, dude,
maybe that'll make it one more event.
Yeah, and so like that's one thing with nitrous motor too. You're always changing spark plug stuff. I got these 2.5 foot long ratchets. You can get to every one of them while you're standing up talking to your buddies. I mean, it's ease of maintenance. That's a big deal on a lot of these cars. You don't want nothing you have to kind of fight to get to.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell some fun stories because you have a great one that's probably one of my favorite stories in all of Drag and Drive is the airplane delivery.
Yes.
I think we were Drag Week 23, right?
Yeah, 23 in down in South Carolina. We were leaving Darlington the first day. So I actually called and confirmed some things about this story today, and I got told there's something that needs to be just kind of hesitated around for airplane licensing purposes, I guess. So anyway, but we can definitely tell the story. So the gist of it is that Gene Fulton has built plenty of motors for me and as my father over the years, and he's a very good to us and has always been very good to us. And we leave Darlington the first day, and we make it to 95, so 50 miles or so. And Dad pulls over kind of abruptly, and we all pull over, and he's in the Purple Nova. And he's like, hey, it's blown up. It knocked a rod out of it, whatever. And I'm like, man, I'm not saying it didn't, but it's hard to believe. Like this thing's been really good to us. And it was a motor that, had some time on it. I was pretty confident in it. And he's like, I don't know. It sounded like it was coming apart. I cut it off. I'm like, okay. So we popped the valve covers off, and laying right on top is, a broke rocker arm. I said, no problem. I got rocker arms in the trailer. So we pull his trailer apart and start digging and find the rocker arms for another motor that we have. So,
Darn.
yep, it's like, darn, we brought rocker arms, just not the right ones. So we get to calling on the horn, and we're talking to everybody, and come to find out, Gene's kind of lead guy, Stacy, has the same exact motor in one of his dragsters or one of his cars, and they were down for the season for the end of the year. And he agrees he'd bring it to us. So they're 5 hours away or 4 hours away. And I get a call back, and it's Gene. He said, hey, look, Stacy's got the rocker arms off. I got them. Me and Stacy are getting in the airplane. We're going to head y'all's way. He said, I think I know where y'all are at. Okay. So he's like, it's only about a 45-minute flight. So they come up, and they, flying around, I guess. And he called me back. He said, you're at the truck stop right at 95. I said, yes, sir. He said, there's a field off to your left right there. I said, yes, sir, there is. And he said, well, these rocker arms are, they're pretty strong, and I got a good idea how to get them to you. So, there's the gist of it was he got them to us in a hurry. So we definitely appreciated it, and it was definitely a cool deal. So one of our buddies, we had a bunch of friends there, and Steven, one of my buddies who wires up a bunch of cars for us and stuff, they had all stopped in. They were all leaving, and a few other people. There's actually a really good place to eat right there or whatever. And so a bunch of us got these rocker arms, and we got them back on the car and got back on the road.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had pulled up just as kind of all of that is going on, and the parking lot you guys were in had some gigantic potholes in it. But man, out front they were cooking barbecue, and dude,
That's right.
Man, it smelled so good.
Yeah, we were there we were there for a while, and I'll never forget. We sat there for like 30 minutes. We were all just kind of bummed and moping. You hadn't made it. You hadn't made an hour into the first drive, and something's broke. It just kind of gets you down. And all of a sudden, we were like, why don't we go eat? So we all walked over there. We ended up messing around with those guys. Those guys were a hoot. They were so darn happy. They didn't know what was coming through. I'm not sure if they knew what country they were in, to be honest with you, but they were so happy. They're like, man, they had like their niece or something bring them like a freaking cooler that had like a bunch of extra barbecue in there. We ain't never sold this much in a day in our life. So
That's awesome.
I think half the people from Hot Rod Drag Week were stopping by right there to getting something to eat. So
Yep. Yeah, and that was one of the best parts about that parking lot. It was like you guys being where you were positioned, like it really kind of, what's going on there? Of course, media were like pulling in trying to find out what's going on. But yeah, it was great, man. It was really a cool spot.
yeah. That motor actually, the rocker arm had broke, and it was the exhaust rocker. So whenever that happens, it just hammers the crap out of a cylinder. And the next day, Dad makes a pass and comes back, and the car won't start. And so we thought we had electrical issues, so we rewired half the car and ended up having 2 batteries strapped in the car. This thing's got like y'all just had excess on here. He could tell you, but I'm sure this thing had probably 3,000 cold cranking amps with 2 of their batteries in it. And the thing finally starts up and runs, and we ran the car for like 7 or 8 hours straight. We never cut it off from shoot, I can't remember the track we were at, but we were going out to Bristol, but we left from Rockingham. So Rockingham to Bristol, drag week route through the mountains, everything else. We're at the gas station. Everybody's got their cars off, cooling them down. And the old Nova's just sitting over there, just humming away. It never cut off. And we got to the hotel and finally cut it off the next morning. We jumped it and cranked it back up. It was good. And the next pass at Bristol, it let a rod out of it. So it turned out our electrical gremlin was actually the rod bearing got beat up when the exhaust, when the exhaust wouldn't open and made all that cylinder pressure. And Dad freaking sawed a block in half. I mean, this aluminum rod, I think there was one rod still connected in the whole motor. I mean, it just destroyed this thing. So that was a 615 that I'd ran for years, and that thing was just – it was just my baby. I had heard it and tore it up, and it never gave me any issues. And once it cut the block in half, it was like, darn, I was sad to see it go. I actually still have it, but it ain't good for nothing no more. So
right, it's gonna be a coffee table in a man cave somewhere.
Yeah. I've always said that, but I need to find some time and do something with it cool, because it definitely means a lot to me. I got that motor when I was 18, and it made it till I was 24.
Wow.
Nice.
That's a long lifetime for a nitrous motor, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, long time.
Well, I want to tell one more story because I got to hear this story at Drag Week and Mike wasn't there, but the wheel bearing story I think is a good one.
Yeah. So we at Hot Rod Drag Week this past year. Me and Eric Gold. Eric Gold's my buddy. He does everything with me, tunes everything for me, and I don't know why. I actually asked him this year while we were riding down the road. I said, "Would you do another one of these?" He said, "Yeah, I'm coming to every one of these. I love this." I'm like, "Well, I can't see why, but he has a good time at them, and I appreciate his help and his knowledge." So we're riding down the road, and me and him are just cruising along, and we hear this squeak, and it's just constant, just very high pitched, but just very short squeak. And both of us kind of looked at each other, and we're cruising down the highway, and both of us at the same time yelled, "It's a lifter!" It's like big nitrous motors. The NATO lifter up. We're gonna try to save the camshaft because we got lifters. And I cut the motor off, and we're just cruising. We were running like 80 mile an hour, so we're just easing down the road, and it's still squeaking, but the motor's off. And so we look at each other like, well, it's not the camshaft, It's like, well, we're not going to stop in the middle of this highway, So we crank it back up and limp it a little ways and pull over, and it's the NATO wheel bearing off of it. So, of course, trying to investigate, we pull the wheel off, and this thing just falls apart, just into a million pieces. It's been flattened pretty much, half the little needle bearings in it. And we sit on the side of the road for like 4 or 5 hours, and the guy that owns, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, he owns the wagon that's so fast that just got tore up.
Michael Morgan.
Yes, he was riding with one of his buddies in a F-body Trans Am, and they messaged us and said they have wheel bearings. He thought it was the right one, and okay, cool. So we waited on them for a couple hours, and they show up. And they're driving this F-body, and there's 2 guys in the front, and they get out, and they're fumbling around with some keys. It was kind of dark, and whatever. And I'm thinking they're going to open up the hatch and, give me these wheel bearings. They weren't saying much. I was standing right on the darn hatch, and they open up the hatch, and Michael stands up out the darn hatch of this F-body, And I mean, it just scared the living crap out of me, And he jumped out and just started rambling off part numbers and what we needed, And so we went over there and looked, and thankfully he pointed us in the right direction. He didn't have the right ones, but he's like, "Oh, it's this type of bearing, whatever." So they ended up hitting the road, and we ended up putting this wheel bearing back together with I'd say there might've been 7 out of the 20 needles in it. And I packed it real tight, and just tightened the crap out of it. We got 8 miles to a parts store. I think it was O'Reilly's. And we get back on the road, just 5 miles an hour, creep up there. And we walk in there, and we ended up raiding this poor kid. It's right before they closed. He was the only one on. We raid his freaking bearings. I mean, the guy's like, "Well, sir, this one's, $16 and this one's $7. You might want to." I'm like, "Dude, I'll take one of every one of them in here. You close in 4 or 5 minutes. I got to have something." And I had brought bearings with me. And of course, that was kind of the same deal. I unpacked them. I thought the car had a certain type of strut on it, and it turned out it doesn't. So that's something, I'd never run into before. So,
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we ended up taking these wheel bearings, and we take and break the cages off of them, and we found one that the OD of it was perfect, but we found another one that the ID of it was I think we needed a 19, and it was 17 or maybe even 18. It was super close, but they were 2 different bearings, So we busted open 4 or 5 more and found the right size needles to put in it to make it where it would get tight, and we're perfect. So now the only thing we need is the inner diameter of this one, center race to open up let's just say a millimeter. And so we sit down with a Dremel tool with a carbide bit on it. And my buddy Eric, that's riding with me, he's like, "All right, I'm gonna hit this, we'll have this thing back on the road in 10 minutes. It's 11:30 at this point. He sits there till midnight, 12:30 maybe, and he's falling asleep with this thing. So finally I grab it from him, and I sit there, and we got the shaft, and we got a bolt that was the right size. We calipered it and got the bolt that was perfect size. So we got a bolt. We're just sitting in a chair, just trying to make this thing fit. And you would grind on this hardened wheel bearing from O'Reilly's. You'd think this thing would be made of paper. It's as hard as the best samurai sword you've ever seen in your life. You would grind on it for 40 minutes. You would have dust all over you. And we must have just been destroying the carbide bit because it would move in just the smallest hair. So after I think it was close to 2, we finally get this thing where we can gingerly tap it on there with a 2-pound hammer. And we drive this thing on there and we pack it real good. And we ride 15, 20 minutes. We pull over on the side of the road and it's as loose as anything you've ever felt in your life. We're like, darn, this did not work, you know? So we pull it all back apart. And it turned out the bearings had just seated in a little bit. We pack it again, put it on there, and we ride. And Brian Goldstein was actually working on his car, and I had messaged him, or he might have saw my Facebook post, whatever. And he had some. He runs the same style. So the next day we get to the track and we're waiting, and this was the morning that they had hurt their motor the night before. And he's messaged me. He's like, "We're going to be there at 10 o'clock." So we wait till like 10. He messaged me. He's like, "It might be like 1 or 2 before we get there." I'm like, God, like I need to get a pass in. He's like, whatever. So we get it up, we check it. It's still tight or whatever. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody walked over there and like, "We heard you had some wheel bearing issues." I'm like, "Yeah, we made one last night." And they're like, "Darn, it's amazing. It made it here." I'm like, "Yeah, I hope it's amazing after this pass because we're about to run 190 mile an hour. And, we're going to see what this thing's made of." So we ended up running that pass and came back, checked it. It's good. We're like, man, we're going to get a job with Ford here soon. And so Brian showed up and give us some ones. And we're like, we're just going to hit the road and, we'll see how it works. And to be honest with you, I thought about it last night. I'm like, I need to change those wheel bearings before we go test this car because that one's still in it now. I haven't raced the car anymore, but it's still fine, I'm sure. But we're gonna put one in there that was designed for that. Yeah, man. Definitely. Because I'm sure the ones we got were for like a jet ski trailer or something.
The $7 stuff comes through, man. The $7 stuff comes through. Well, I want to talk. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that's one of those things on drag week. It's like you're going to run into issues. And the thing I always laugh about is like the karma always comes around. So Michael and those guys stopped and helped us with the wheel bearing, pointing us in the right direction. We appreciate it so much. The last day or the Thursday, we actually passed those guys with the Trans Am, pulled over on the side of the road, and I stopped. I'm like, God, I got to stop and see if they're okay. Mm-hmm. So we stopped, and they're like, "Hey, we need a transmission pan." I'm like, "I ain't got a transmission pan, but I got a transmission, and it's got a pan on it." So we actually pulled the transmission pan off one of my 400s and gave it to those guys on the side of the road, and they were in a terrible spot, man. It's like 4-lane wide, log trucks coming by, and like I was like, "Look, dude, y'all good?" He said, "We're good. I appreciate it." So I was like, "Cool deal." We hit the road, and they ended up getting them through the week, So I'm like, the karma always comes around in the drag racing, whether it's at a track or especially at a drag and drive.
I think I got a picture of them on the side of the road with the car jacked up. I think I posted it. It was in the album yesterday, and it was pure luck because we were, booking down the highway in the rental car, and I saw it, and I just stuck the camera out the window and held the button down until we passed, and there was one picture that was somewhat clear, but yeah, the front end's all jacked up on it. They're standing around it.
We were so tired and delusional by day 4 of Thursday. When we left, we for some reason, one of us in the car thought of the joke that like people are going by saying, "Wow, that Trans Am's broke down." And then they're like, "How is there 3 guys working on it?" And we laughed about it for like, ever, and looking at it now, I'm like, that's so stupid. That's not funny at all. But when you're on like, 20 hours of sleep for a week, it's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to bring up because this is what's coming.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
He always freezes at the weirdest times.
Darn, I can't believe it's me. I'm in the middle of the woods in a metal building.
Well, I think this is what he was going to show.
Yeah.
I believe so. And so talking about car upgrades, you've got turbos coming?
Yep. So Matt down at Performance Fab actually, posted some pictures yesterday, and which he had every right to, but and we're not keeping any secrets here. But the car is definitely, it's in turbo mode now, so it'll be here tomorrow at the shop. I can't wait to see it with my own eyes. I'm really excited. So, like I said, I've had this turbo truck behind me before, and I've raced, drove quite a few turbo cars over the years. And I'm not a turbo hater. I love turbos. I love the idea of it. It's a little complicated for me. It's at the end of the day, nitrous is just so simple and so easy. And if you hurt something, you're going to hurt a piston, and you can just, put a piston in it. So that to me makes more sense. But
did you hang up on me?
How do you always freeze at the weirdest moments?
No, It like completely shut me out. I was bringing up the turbo stuff here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's
Sure, that's
cool.
what you guys were talking about. Dude, he did amazing work.
Yeah, no, he definitely did, and he called me a couple times during it, and he's like, "Man, we can make this happen, but it's gonna be weird." And I'm like, "Yo, I knew it was gonna be weird because what we wanted was kind of weird. The car needed nose weight really bad, and unfortunately, the turbos, they're the heaviest thing we added, but we couldn't get those up in the front like we wanted to. They ended up being, as you can see in the pictures, kind of behind the front tire,
Mhm.
which is totally cool. But that meant all the fuel system and everything that we kind of planned on doing, like a rear sump deal, all that had to be in the front. It made it where, a couple other things that we were going to put in the rear of the car, we really needed to get everything on the front. This car, was like 51 and a half on the nose, and a radial car just isn't going to like that. So we it ended up being, luckily the car is all tubed and everything else, and it's a lot of room up there. But he definitely ended up, having to do some really funky stuff that I don't think he was totally happy about doing, but it looks great and it's totally amazing. So I'm super happy he did it.
Yeah, this is going to be really cool, man. I'm really excited to see you step off into the turbo stuff. Yeah, I like nitro stuff, but man, turbos are where it's at, dude.
Yeah, no doubt. And to be honest with you, we kind of took the cheat code. David Armentrout,
Hmm.
Devin, all these guys are all running. I think there's two or three other ones that I can't remember the names of or can't think of, but they're running these par motors. And where we're at, bracket racing huge, and man, these guys run these bracket motors. These bracket par motors. They just beat them, and they're super simple. Well, I say super simple. They're not overly complicated by any means. I mean, it's a wet sump, or I guess you could consider it a hybrid, but it's a wet sump motor. It's not a tall deck. It's not an odd bore space. It's a very standard motor, and you can just cram boost down its throat and it'll make numbers. So I saw how good Devin had done and David, and Devin being someone that we're not local to, but we're within the
Hmm.
vicinity of, and I've seen that car do some impressive stuff, especially like not at drag week, or at sick week or whatever. And David, once again, he's somewhat local, and then the guy that tunes his car, Paul, is very local to us, and I see them a lot, and that car is very impressive for what it is. And so we're like, hey, if we're gonna do turbos, we're gonna follow the pack, I guess you'd say. I really don't like trying to, from a nitrous guy, it's hard to believe this, but like I don't like trying to like invent a new wheel. I mean, nitrous has been around since the 40s in airplanes, so like I knew this combination worked. I knew it lived. Matt did a lot of fabrication on a bunch of these drag and drive cars, so I had confidence that he could build something that wouldn't constantly crack or have issues. And he kind of understands the concept. I feel like some people have a very hard time understanding the concept of drag and drive and what it really does to vehicles. So I was totally excited that he took on us and what we wanted to do. And yeah, we're super excited to get it back here. I got parts. I got a pile of parts as tall as I am over here to the right. And the plan is hopefully about 2 weeks we're gonna have that thing on the track. And the good news is, and it's good news and bad news. The good news is the chassis is already sorted out to a certain extent. We're moving some weight
Hmm.
around, but nothing crazy. The car 60 foots really well now, and if anything, we should have helped that. Uh, they did. M&M just did us a new converter and did a few things to the transmission that we didn't have for the nitrous car, and they want to do a few things a little different. But that's already been in the car, and it's really just a motor swap more or less with all the hot side and the cold side of the turbos. The car was already fuel injected. It already had plenty of fuel on board. Stuff like
Hmm.
that. So not too terrible of a swap for being a big swap, but it we think the performance will definitely be there. I mean, this thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, from what Scott's told me down at Pars, this motor should be very well being capable of making twice what our old motor did.
Oh man,
Wow.
let's go.
Yeah, and something that I'm seeing in the drag and drive community, like a lot of people, Brett and Devin, a lot of guys are building chassis cars now. I mean, they're building. They can call them what they want, but it's a chassis car that's just stuck in stock dimensions.
Hmm.
And we were probably not ahead of that curve, but we were a little bit above a lot of these guys. I would say building a chassis car that isn't a pro mod like Jeff or Tom, but the our car is actually a pro, or not a pro. I'm sorry. Yeah, a pro stock. So my car is actually built on a pro stock chassis. Like it was a pro stock chassis that was supposed to be bodied and raced, and the guy ended up buying the chassis and putting it underneath the shell of our car. So I
Oh,
mean, we've got chassis. Chassis never given us any issues. It's plenty beefy, it's plenty bulky, and I mean a pro stock car runs plenty fast in an HRA quarter
Mhm.
mile. So we've got the chassis to do it, and we've definitely got the technology and all to do it. So we're just we're excited to have some power now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's your 2025 event plans? Do you have any kind of set up yet?
Yeah, people ask me from time to time, and we're definitely going to Sick Week. I'm glad to hear that Drag Week's still going to be around. We'll more than likely go to that. I try not to miss that under any circumstances. And then besides that, I really want to run Devon's race this year. I've never gotten a chance to do it. I did some other races down there. They had some Carolina drag cruises that we did back in the day. And we really like that part of the country. That's Spartanburg. That's, if you're a drag racer and you can move anywhere in the country, I would suggest going there because there's tracks and engine builders and everything you could ever want is in Spartanburg. I'd say it's right there with Florida. Everyone's talking about Florida,
Yep.
Florida, but Spartanburg is really up there. But I want to do his race. Midwest Drag says they're going to do some stuff a little different. If they do that, we'll probably end up going and checking them out. I've always liked the Midwest Drags for the 2 pass a day stuff. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like, we're going to give you a little bit on the drive. You can kind of, you still have to make the drive. You still got checkpoints, but we're not going to babysit you so good. But at the same time, they're like, we're going to get it on the track. You got to make 2 a day,
Mhm.
So, and the only thing about the Midwest Drag stuff that it kind of hurts your average for the year if you're going to try to do points, in my mind at least. We had some good days and some bad days, and some of our bad days, it was actually a good day for the first pass, and by the time we got turned around to make the second pass, the sun had come out. They had stopped treating the track. A bunch of slower cars with worse tires had beat the track up, and our second pass turned out just not to be that great.
Yeah.
So it does kind of hurt your average, but I still love the event, and it's definitely run well and thought out. So we'll probably do that. Besides that, we just kind of whatever we can get into, whatever floats our way. I mean, we'll probably run streetcar bragging rights, which not a drag and drive, but I consider that to be like drag and drive adjacent. If you go there, their classes are full of drag and drive cars.
Yeah.
So and that's an awesome event. The guy that puts it on told everyone that he wouldn't have a drag race if he couldn't have fireworks. And like, to me, that's just my kind of event right there. Like,
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. We'll probably do some streetcar brag or streetcar takeover. If they got some of those that are local to us, we'll probably go there and run some of the 8th mile stuff and maybe some of the quarter mile stuff, but they're not really focused towards cars that are as fast as what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Just like I said, we've got our local series. I'm right on the Virginia North Carolina border, so we run a series, a Virginia series and a North Carolina series, and we're definitely going to run both of those next year. And we're talking about going up to Maryland and maybe doing a little playing up there, if we got some free time. So we definitely got a jam packed schedule,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. So it's definitely always something going on. So we're very lucky to live where we live and have the ability to do what we do. So we're very thankful for all that we have. So
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on tonight and chatting with us, telling some stories. Where can people follow you and see builds on the cars and stuff like that?
yeah, I'm kind of terrible about that. I post more on Facebook than anywhere else. It's just Graham Hayes on Facebook. There is a Graham Hayes on Instagram, and then there's a Hayes Racing on Instagram too. I post there kind of generally. It's mostly just winter circle pictures of us. If we do something cool. I do have a YouTube channel. It's Hayes Racing. I kind of dabble from here to there if I have time. Mostly what I post on there is just kind of more technical stuff. If I'm honest, if it's stuff that if I find something that I'm like, hey, I think people could really use this and not a lot of people know about it, I'll post it. But those are few and far between. So it's definitely, it's not a everyday posting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're too busy racing.
Well, that and working. So yeah, it's working 10 hours a day and then come home and work on the race car, for another 4 or 5 hours and then wife and family and everything else. So
Oh
I
yeah.
will say this. I was thinking about this while y'all were talking to the guy from Excess Power. We bought a battery from him at our first battery from him at Sick Week, and we've got two of them. And Dad grabbed one and I grabbed one, and we turned around and both like made a complete 360. And Dad said, "Where's the? These are the display batteries. Where's the real ones?" And he said, "That's your battery." And Dad looked at him and said, "No, I'm telling you, it's a display battery." And Dad was so convinced, and I was too. I was like, "This thing is fake." Like this. My cell phone weighs more than this. And the guy grabbed a multimeter or like a voltmeter or whatever and stuck it right on there. It had like 13, 14 volts or whatever. And I was like, man, and we walked all the way from his, in the staging lanes, all the way back to our hauler, all the way down at the very end of the return road. And the whole time we were like, man, we just got screwed. Like there's no way these batteries are going to be worth a darn. Like I'm thinking there's like one single AA battery in there. And man, I tell you, that thing would start the world if it ever cut off. They are amazing. So I always try to rep their stuff. I have all their stickers on my cars and stuff, and their stuff is top notch. So
That's awesome. Well,
All right.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I can't wait to hang out at Sick Week.
Yep. We should have a good time down there.
Yeah, we're gonna spend more than 40 minutes together. I'm gonna follow you around for a couple of days or something. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, that's cool. I hope a bunch of people are following us around because I hope we're doing good. I mean, you never know what comes your way during these races, but we're gonna put a lot of effort and a lot of time into doing good down there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, please keep us updated on testing and stuff like that in the car and all that comes about over the next, I'm sure, few weeks for you guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will do. We'll try to throw some time slips up if we do something cool. So
there you go. All right, man. Thanks, Graham. We'll see you soon, bud.
Thank y'all. Good talking. See you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks,
dude. How cool! I love that he was going turbos. I'm a big fan. Big fan of that car. Just the whole family, they have a blast, and they're fast as all get out for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It was Tommy, all the Summit guys. We were hanging out at the hotel, and he comes wandering out and just hung out for a little bit. And man, did we laughed so much. I mean, some of the stories that he tells, about the wheel bearing and everything, just we were cracking up all night. So it was a ton of fun hanging out with him.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right, well, dude, let's wrap this up, man.
Yeah. So next week,
yep.
Go for it. Next week, next Monday. Yeah, actually, it'll be on Monday, not next week. Mm-hmm. But on Monday, because of the holiday, we're going to change the day up a little bit. But we have Reggie Moore, Jason Schaefer, and Scott Guthrie on the show to talk about their trip across America and their hot rods. And this is going to be the only guest we have on for the show because they are going to have some stories to tell, I'm sure. And I'm super excited to hear those.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. So we're going to start the show with like probably 15 or 20 minutes of just regular, updates and news and stuff like that. But then, we've really planned 90 minutes for these guys because just the photos that Reggie and Jason and Scott have sent have been awesome. This is going to be really, really, really cool. And these three cars they have here, that's what they drove. Jason and Scott both drove from Florida to Famosa in California. So they went out to SEMA for a couple of days and then cruised on out to Famosa. It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Bring it on.
Well, one last time, again, we've had lots of people in here tonight making comments, hanging out, watching. So appreciate all of you guys. You guys are our race car friends, and you guys are what keeps us going each and every week. And again, we cannot do this without our sponsors. They make all of this possible. So thank you. Summit Racing Equipment, Marley Motorsports, Driven Racing Oil, Car Change 3D, WAF Racing, Performabuilt Transmissions, Howard's Cam, Sweet Patina, J-Wire Solutions, Racing Junk, and Power Tube TV. Guys, we will see you on our next episode.
Yep. See you guys. Yeah, dude.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.